You, right? And I'm very happy to see you again today, right? It's going to be very exciting. So on the 16th of March, sorry, on the 16th of August, right? So 2022. So President Biden actually signed what is called now the RIA, which is the Inflation Reduction Act, right? With the aim to reduce inflation but also to boost the promotion into clean energy and also fight climate change. And this is clearly a major piece of legislation, which is investing 369 billion into the sector. So you probably heard about it, and I don't know what you're thinking about it, but I want us to discuss about it today. If that's okay, then that's great, right? So, but before we dive into that, that's what we're going to be seeing in this video. But before we dive into that, so let me first of all say that welcome to Renewables in Africa channel. In this channel, there's multiple things that we do. We want to make sure that we simplify the renewable energy sector for you. So it makes it seamless for you to connect, to understand, and to see how you can contribute. We definitely want to make sure that from whichever angle you're coming, especially, for example, if you are an investor, and especially the video today is going to be very interesting for you because you may be thinking, okay, I have lots of money. I want to pour my money into the sector. I want to make sure that I can contribute to grow this sector, but there's some piece of information that I don't know. I'm here to give you the information. You may be saying as well that I am a business, but I know that, I have some restrictions coming. I have some basic incentive coming, telling us that we need to invest more into clean energy. We need to decarbonize ourselves. We need to bring the level of our reduction of our emissions down, right? As part of our ESG, for example. But the question is, okay, I have the money. I've made some provision on that, but how do I make it happen? Where do I get the information? And how can I better understand this sector? This is what I want to clarify for you so it makes it seamless for you to connect. Or you may be saying, hey, I'm a professional, I'm in another sector, but I want to jump into renewable energy. I want to do what Tony did more than 10 years ago and become as knowledgeable as possible and make sure that I can bring my contribution. But how do I do it? Don't worry. That's exactly what we want to talk to you today about, right? And we are here to make sure that it's easy and seamless for you to connect and to contribute. And that's what we all about. So, but before I actually dive into that, there's one thing that I wanted to discuss first because one of the things that I know, so it's coming from my experience. I don't know whether you're sharing the same thing, and I'm hoping that some of you will actually be sharing some of the experience. So the challenge sometimes is when you see such a piece of legislation, right, that is coming. So obviously it's definitely very big, right? So you're hearing a lot of people talking about that, but you don't know exactly how you connect to it. How does it talk to you? And that's what I want to discuss today. At least you get a better understanding of what it's all about, right? Like I say, that's how I used to feel before. And as I say usually, when you come into the sector like that, so it's important to have an understanding of the global picture, because having this understanding of the global picture will allow you to better connect and once you better connect, you know now how to interact and how to actually make sure that you can bring your contribution. And that's what I want to do so into this. And before I go even further into this, right? So let me first of all say that for those of you who want to connect, basically, who wants to make sure that they can bring their contribution, they can help us to clarify this message, there's actually three things that I'd like you to do. Number one, I want you to make sure that you subscribe to the channel because we actually broadcast for 5 channels. So we have YouTube, we have LinkedIn, we have Twitter, we have Telegram, we have Facebook. So whichever way you want to connect, make sure that you do it. Subscribe to it. And the second thing, I want you to leave a comment. Tell us whether you like it, you do not like it. Tell us whether there's some topic that you want us to cover, and we'll make sure that we do it. And the third thing for you is simply to share, right? Yes, absolutely share. I want you to share this video with people that you know and people that could be interested, right? So that very much be of a pleasure. But let's come back to the topic of today. And I'll say we're talking about the Inflation Reduction Act in the US, right? So first of all, what you want to know, so what I call the RIA, so don't confuse that with the movement in Ireland, basically. So it was actually passed very recently because the bill was it's actually an amendment of the proposed Build Back Better Act. That's actually what the President Biden wanted to push forward right after he won the election. That was part of manifesto, right? That he wanted to deliver for the US. But clearly, he wasn't able to pass that at initial format, right? Because there was a strong opposition from one of the senator, which is called Joe Manchin, right? So he was opposing to that. So they have had to reword that, and they managed to bring everybody together. And actually, with the support of the Democrat senator, who opposed the motion before, he supported this time, and they actually passed it on the 8th of August, right? So that was actually in the Senate, and then in the House of Representatives, they passed it on the 12th of August. On the 16th of August, the President Biden actually turned it into law, right? So he signed it, and that's a very significant. So first of all, you need to know that this is the biggest investment that the United States is making into renewable energy, but also climate change, right? So they're taking the most aggressive action ever, so for their country in terms of confronting the climate crisis, right, and strengthening obviously energy security on their behalf. Now you may be asking yourself, okay, I've heard that. I've heard you speaking, Tony. Oh, by the way, I can see some of you already sending me some comment messages. Okay, excellent. That's brilliant. So make sure that you send me a question after that. And what I usually do, so after I've had a little discussion and a little expose about a topic, I take a couple of questions, and I'm always happy to see them and to respond to them. So don't hesitate. Please do me a favor. Make sure that you land some question there, because I like to make sure that it's interactive and we can contribute as much as possible. But now let's come back into the bill, because as I was describing, sometimes the challenge when you hear about a big piece of legislation like that is that, okay, you can see it seems to be big investment. You can see a lot of people have a say about it. Some will approve it, of the won't. But it's important for you to understand what's in it. So why should you be concerned? So what could potentially be interesting? And that's what I want to dispel for you today. So at least it makes a little bit sense, right? So a key component. So first of all, you got to say that not everything in this bill actually relate to renewable energy or climate change, right? So otherwise, it would not be called Inflation Reduction Act, right? So some of them are social measures, healthcare measures. So with all due respect, I'm not competent in those areas, so I would not comment on those, right? If that's fine. So let me just talk on the pieces, right? That kind of it's in my sector and where I believe I can share a couple of words in that. So a key component of the IRA, it's the extension of the tax credit, right? So there was a tax credit there, I think up to 30%, I believe. That's for example, commercial and residential solar system, which is great, right? Which is a big thing. So, and that's actually for the next decade, including actually projects that are going this year, which is actually huge. You can imagine if you're in the middle of project like that and you see something like that being enacted, it's a tremendous boost for you, because you have to put yourself in perspective and say that. So before that, for the last few years, it has been quite challenging for the sector in the US, right? Because first of all, you had a number of restrictions so that the previous administration had for some of the component that was supplied from offshore, so clearly from China, for example. And then you had obviously the COVID-19, not easy at all. And then you have as well the geopolitical situation in Ukraine, all of that. It's a meet with inflation. It has been quite challenging. So having such a big piece of legislation that come and say, hey, all of a sudden you're gonna get 30% tax credit, that's marvelous, right? Nobody can complain about that. So okay, they were happy about that. And for larger projects, so we're talking about a project of a 1 megawatt, right? So clearly, as also the tax credit was about six. It was about 6%, if I'm correct, right? And actually, if you actually include as well some labor and wages low that you can actually distribute to the people that you're working with, that can rise up to 30%, which is great, right? That's fantastic. And on top of that, for this project, so not only like I say, if you margin a large project, right? Let's say commercial mall, 1 megawatt and beyond, let's say 5 megawatt, you have 6% tax credit. That's great. And also, if you also sort of enacting some provisions, towards labor, but also the wages that you're paying to your employees, you could potentially extend that tax credit up to 30%. And on top of that, what we're actually saying that if you procure now panels that are actually manufactured in the US, you can get an additional 10%, right? So that's excellent. So yeah, so and in some location it can go even further than that. So that's how you can see really how we actually provided a significant boost, because you also know that, and that's a way also to increase and to encourage the use of locally manufactured panels, right? Because most of the time they tend to be more expensive than the one coming from Asia, right? That's a way to boost the local market. So you clearly have a lot of manufacturing credit in this bill that are designed, like I say, to boost the U.S. PV manufacturing market, right, and also the renewable energy sector as a whole. So that's what we can see, and I can say it's very, very interesting in this piece of legislation. So I haven't had into that some credit that you have as well. So if you buy electric vehicles, like I said, there's a number of provisions there that clearly are good to look at. So hopefully that makes sense for you. So if it doesn't make sense, just let me know. I can see already that I have a question from somebody. So that's Dharma. And then he actually sent me a question in French. I respond to that. Don't worry. I can handle French. I can handle it. So now, the thing is that I believe some of you listening will be asking themselves, okay, but all of this is in US. What should I care? Yeah. I was saying, for example, my message on LinkedIn. So if you have, for example, a guy like Oluojuere, who's my colleagues working in Kenya, okay, that's great. But in the US, so should he be really concerned? Or maybe my sister, right? So she's an ESG officer, for superb company in Gabon. Why would she be concerned about that? Because basically all of that, what I've said so far, so on the surface, when we look at that, we would think that, okay, that's in the US and I should not be bothered at all. And that's what I clearly want to address. So if that's also one of your concerns, just drop it in the comment box. So let me know what you think. Let me know why you think that we should be paying attention to that, and I'll be happy to look at that. Does anybody has anything to say regarding this? So Dharma, for example, yeah. So you send me a message. So do you have anything you want to say? So should we be looking at that? Should we be concerned at all, or not, or not at all? What would you say about it? Let me know. Yeah. So, but let me tell you from my end why we should care about that. So the bill is aimed to reduce. Why should we care about that globally? The bill is aimed to reduce greenhouse gas emission by 40% compared to 2005 levels. That's in the US. So clearly, first of all, it's a significant help for the fight against global warming, because one thing that we should not forget is that the US is the second larger emitter of CO2, right? They have about 13% of global emissions. So clearly, what the US does impact the global picture. In other way, if you remember, for example, when the previous administration came in and President Trump just put out the Paris Agreement, could you see how despair people were? And that's what I'm talking about here. So whatever the US does, because that's still to this day the most powerful country, the biggest economy, whatever happened there tends to have a repercussion. And even if you're not that, even if it wasn't the most powerful country, it can one of the biggest economy, it still will have an impact, right? Because like I've said in previous videos, whatever happened in part of the world, we live in such a globalized world that it does have an impact, and it's important to pay attention to that. Yeah. So, and also it's fair to say that, yeah, what the US does impact the global picture, that's what I'll say. But also, you also have portions of the Inflation Reduction Act, right, that are programs that were actually successful in triggering the energy transition in the US. And this legislation actually just make it better because it goes further, right? And that's what is good. And the other thing as well, because this is what people should see, this is not an executive order. So I don't want to dive into US politics, right? But it's not an executive order which can easily be dismissed or stopped when the next president comes around, if it happens not to be Biden again. This is actually a law, which means a little bit more difficult to change it, right? So clearly, there is an aspect of longevity of the commitment here, which also sends a signal. And he also said that the country firmly supported transition, from carbon and away to energy transition, right? So that's something that's very, very important. It sent a signal, and usually that's what investors like. They like to see something on a long-term basis. So I mean, especially in the sector we're in, so we need big investment, and those investments we know that they will have real impact within the, let's say, the medium to long term, right? So, and that's what we're actually looking for. But for you to be able to do that in the sector, you need to have a piece of legislation that create the environment that allow those investment to happen, and for people to be, let's say, confident about the prospect of their investment, right? That's very good. And also it's important because the bill actually favor investment into new technology or nascent technology. For example, like energy storage, we absolutely need it. Green hydrogen, we absolutely need it. Also carbon capture. And I'm sure you know that, for those technology to happen or basically to materialize, they can be spread all around, all across the globe, right? Because a lot of investors, as you know, will come from the US. So if they are able to locally already build up, develop technologies like that, it's everybody that's gonna introduce, that's gonna benefit from that, right? So yeah, so there's a lot of policy measures which actually promote the build out of clean tech supply, right, within the US, but also for the free trade agreements partners of the US, right? And that's how you can see a direct connection with everybody around the globe. I talk about, for example, a country like Kenya. Definitely, Kenya has free trade agreements, some free trade agreement with the US. I talk about my friends who work, for example, for BP, so in the focus also among anything, other things, the European market, same thing. So they have trade agreement with the US. If the bill support there, you can see clearly the level of investment that will go into that will actually be bigger and bigger. And that's actually quite true because what I know, for example, is since that bill was passed, the investment into the sector has kind of double, if not triple, since then. Yeah, that's how significant it is. And if you add into that measures that the European Union is also taking, you clearly will have as well a country like Japan that will respond to that, potentially China as well. It sort of creates a whole momentum and drive things forward. And that's what you want to see. Yeah, that's what you want to see. So when you see big players like making such a move, it has such a tremendous impact and effect into the sector. And it's the quite surprising thing for me, not surprising, let's say interesting thing. So recently I was just traveling back home after a couple of days away. And just on the train, that was I think that was in St. Pancras in London. What I could see, the number of times I was looking pretty much left, right, I would see messages related to sustainability, climate change. Clearly, I've been in the sector long enough to say that things like that, I definitely will not seen that before, right? So clearly, the picture is changing, environment is changing. Obviously, we want it to happen faster than what it does at the moment, but still, we can't neglect what we are seeing. So when we see a big piece of legislation like that, trust me, it does have an impact in the US, but it also clearly does have an impact globally. And we'll start going to see it and feel it simply because whatever the US does affect the global picture. And I'm sure you guys will agree with me. So that's what I wanted to say regarding this bill. It's quite interesting to see how things going to unfold. So we're yet to see, but I'd be happy to see what is that you're thinking, right? So what is your opinion? Have you, if you are in the sector, have you already seen some movement happening since that time, or not yet at all? Or maybe do you still not care, or do you not believe into the sector at all? So I like to get your opinion to see what you are thinking, because that's also good to educate myself, right, and see what you guys are thinking. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to be taking a couple of questions here. I can see people been writing to me, sending comments, and we'll see. So if you're listening, if you're still sitting on the fence, don't sit on the fence too much. Just let me know what you think, and let's talk about that, if that's okay. Okay, let me just look at whoever we have here, what we could see. Okay, I have, okay, Brian Rutledge says, listening. Hey, Brian, thank you for listening. Always appreciate that. Always like when you guys are around. So, do you have any questions for me specifically? If yes, let me know. I'll be very happy to respond to that. Yeah. Or if not, maybe just give me your opinion about the topic at all. Yeah. So, do you agree, not agree? That's fine. So, and then I have Dharma Ram say, "Hey, listening now, great Dharma." So I'm hoping that you're still listening. So do you agree with what I'm saying? So what do you think about the legislation? Do you think it's important at all? So what country are you in, and do you see any potential impact? So that's what I like to see. And then Dharma send me another question in French where you say, notre plan sera d'investir au Gabon pour un projet. Oh, okay, pour un projet solaire BB. Okay, excellent. So essentially, Dama is saying that they're planning to invest into Gabon in a solar project BES. That's great. I think Gabon is a great country. I think they definitely one of the country that seems to be quite focused and making things happen from the sector. I know they started a little bit behind compared to maybe countries like Kenya or Ghana, something like that, but they're clearly doing the work. So if you're planning to invest into Gabon, that's a great thing. And like I say, my sister lives in Gabon, so I have family there. So that's a good thing. So what project is it? So or what size? Is it a utility scale, commercial, industrial, solar home system? So yeah, can you tell us a little bit more? And if you need some support there, I don't know, you can also feel free to reach out to me. We can have another discussion, right? That's great. So Dharma is giving his details. Okay, that's great, Dharma. So I'll say send us an email. So we're very happy to talk to you and see what is that you are doing and how we can help you do that further and better. Yeah, excellent. Then I have Ahmed Fatih say listening. Hey Ahmed, great that you're listening. That's fine, and I'm also watching you. So, any question for me? So, is there anything you want to find out? So, do you agree with what I said? Do you not agree? So, or in general, do you have a question? Yeah. So that's what I like to see from you guys. So that'd be good. Then I see Brian Rothschild say, I agree. It's not enough that renewable energy is mined. It must be obtained, mined or recovered from trading. Okay. It must be obtained and processed in a manner or not produce devastation or its weight. Okay, that's great. I must say, Brian, I am not sure I understand exactly what you mean by must be mined. It must be obtained, mined, or recovered from. Yeah, I think apologies. It's probably me. So, so I'm sure what you said have a meaning. But if you can help me a little bit to break it down a little bit for me. So, but you seem to be saying that you agree with what I said, that the bill is creating an environment that's going to favor more investment, more interest into the sector, and will allow uh, the energy transition to take shape more and more, right? clearly it will start first of all locally in the US. So people that who are in the US will immediately take advantage for that. I'm thinking about, for example, people deploying commercial, industrial solar project. As I say, there's tax credit that are available out of from this year, which is great for them, right? They will tap into that, and then for the next decade, then going beyond that, like I say, the bill investing into technologies like energy storage, hydrogen, but also a carbon capture. It benefit the US for sure, good for the energy security in the US for sure, but also expanding, right? Also, because why expanding? Because as I explained before, so if the bill is also favoring local manufacturing in the US, guess what? And obviously, we all know the US, isn't it, right? So they manufacture that, but also want to sell their customer their goods abroad, right? So that's the thing. And if they're getting some help from their government, right? So that means it's going to make it slightly cheaper for them, so they can sell it at a more competitive price abroad, right? Which is a good thing. People like First Solar, they will enjoy it, I'm sure. Yeah, or I'm hoping. So that's clearly is a good thing. So I'm sure there's many things else that should be worked out, but let's see. So Brian sort of listened to me and said carbon collection technology exists and have great potential. My experience is that obtaining even modest funding is difficult. Yeah, I agree that carbon capture has been around, and I know that as well because I remember when was it? Probably like 6, 7 years ago. Yeah, something like that. So I did some research and study into carbon capture. There was some technology there, some project going on, but clearly it's still a little bit expensive and then controversial as well. People have to say because one of the challenge some people are saying is yes, carbon capture has a potential, but it still encourage people to use fossil fuel because people are just going to defend say, hey, let me keep on using the fossil fuel. I just have to burn it down, bury it down, right? So which goes against the the rationale that we should encourage people to move away from fossil fuel. The challenge is, guys, if we're saying, for example, in the case of the US, that one has to cut down emission by 40%, right, compared to 2005 level, we also need to be uh, pragmatic, right? So to make it happen, to cost faster, that's the thing, to cost faster, which is exactly what we need, right? If we saying at all that we're gonna be reaching carbon neutrality by 2050, which is not that far, right? We just in 2022, we just have another 28 years. You know, it's not that far. So that means we need to cut down. We need to bring it down fast. And for that to happen, for me, I believe we need all kind of technologies and have a proper conversation around that, right? We should not have no taboo and say, hey, let's put things on the table. What is doable? What is not doable? And we need to get everybody around the table, right? So we have to be realistic. That's the thing. So that's usually the approach that I see. I know some will like what I'm saying. Other ones were saying that you still encouraging people to use fossil fuel. But I'm just saying we have to look at the reality, look at the world the way it is, right? And hopefully take it to where we want to. But we need to bring everybody with us in this conversation. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. Just as simple as that. So okay, excellent. So just to say that, yeah, you're right. Those technology exist now. Funding it. So and I was gonna say to Brian, yeah, the basically up until now, no legislation in the U.S. and I'm talking about U.S. because carbon capture clearly you have people like the U.S., Europe, and potentially some countries in Asia, like for example. Japan or China that would invest into it, yeah. But as far as I know, especially in the U.S., you had no legislation or support, government support that was actually so clear for technology carbon capture. So potentially from now on, it will make it slightly easier. So that's actually what this bill could potentially do. So yes, it has been difficult up until now, Brian, but that's because you didn't have something like the RIA now in existence. Now you have it. The question becomes, so is it still as difficult? Let's see. Yeah. Because I know in RIA there is specifically mention about carbon capture, right? So that's one thing that we want to check. So yeah, I can't see any other question here. So let me just turn it back to you guys. So is there any question that you want to find out from the discussion anything that you've not understood properly. Obviously, I'm sure the legislation, if you go to the US government websites, you'll find everything detailed there. So what I was simply presenting to you here, it's like the main amendment, the main measures with regard to the renewable energy sector here. Again, I've not mentioned all of them. I've mentioned a couple of them, so that are significant to show why it's such an important and why it's such a historic piece of legislation. The biggest investment that the US is making into renewable energy, fighting climate change. That's what I wanted to demonstrate here. I also wanted to demonstrate to people like this is the thing that I usually say. For you, so if you are an investor, if you are a professional, if you are a company, you need to understand, you need to have the global picture in your mind, because that will explain to you what's happening even in your locality at times, right? Because that's what would dictate it, right? Because it's either you're one of those big player, or you're maybe in the supply chain, or maybe you are a potential customer. So having that big understanding allows you sometimes to anticipate. So that's why I'm always keen to take such a big piece of legislation, breaking it down so that you understand what is at stake for you, right? So I'm hoping that if you're an investor, you have a better understanding of what it is. And now you know that if you were thinking about investing to a sector and you happen to be in the US market, for example, now is the time. Now it's time to do it, because you have a legislation making things simpler. You have those tax credits, making sure that actually clearly there, if you make an investment in some projects, this project, the cost is coming down because you have those credits. Yeah. If you're a company, you want to invest into technology, energy storage, hydrogen, again, you have a bill there that supports it. Clearly, if you're in the US, but also if you're offshore and you're dealing with some US and you may be keen of getting some US product, just to compare that with some Asian product, as I say, things are slightly easier for you now. So having this understanding allowing you to take informed decision, and that's what it's all about. Obviously, there's a lot more that we can do, but if you want to do that, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you. Because at Renewables in Africa, we're very keen to make sure that we're helping you to raise awareness about your products and services, and more important, we want to help you to improve your sales, because it's about making sales, it's about making money. Because if you make money, right, you're able to sell your product and you're able to get this industry to grow. And that's what we're very keen to help people in doing that. And we happy as well about what we're doing already. Yeah, that's great. So hopefully that was quite useful for you. I don't see any other questions. So if there is, so I'll drop it right now, of why I'm just going to have to go. So if you like it, please click right now, share it right now, please. I like to see people sharing this video if they liked it. So leave me a comment, just like Brian has done, just like Dan has done. Leave a comment, and even if you happen to come and watch it afterwards, still leave a comment, because I sometimes go back there. Me and my team, we're looking at that, and there's a question we can respond to. We're happy to do it, and do not forget. So we're gonna have us another video on Wednesday, and we're even thinking about doing a lot more video. Why? Because we can see that people are hungry for information. They want to know more. So as usual, as I talk, when I'm about to leave, there's a question popping up. Let me see, what question is it? Okay, still Mr. Brian. Okay, Brian. So, as I say, right, I'm asking for questions. I can't complain, right? Thank you, Brian. Thank you for sharing. Brian is saying, so to explain, renewable energy requires physical equipment that needs exotic raw material. Absolutely correct. Such as rare earth. Absolutely correct. Obtaining such exotic raw material from Africa elsewhere must. Oh, absolutely. I I think I can't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And the way as well, Brian, thanks for that, because you allowed me as well to show how things are connected. Because when we're talking about more energy storage, more hydrogen, energy storage, we're talking about batteries, right? So what is the dominant technology right now? Lithium. Yeah, lithium ion, isn't it, right? So where do you find it? So you know that a big part, you have lithium. Lithium is one of the dominant technology. Then you also have, but to also build those batteries, you need cobalt, right? So where do you find it? 90%, I think between 80 and 90% of it come from Congo, GRC. So that means if the US decided to go big on energy storage, they're going to need a lot more batteries and they're going to need a lot more raw materials. Where are they going to go to get it? They're going to go in Congo, obviously, right? Or wherever there is. And this is how these guys will find themselves dragged into this momentum for supply chain. And this is where Brian is saying, hold on. It means that as it happens, we need to also make sure that it happens in a responsible manner, which has not always been the case. We all know that. Let's just not repeat the mistakes of the past, right? So that's why when I'm doing video like that, it's just to say, hey, you following me in the US, look at what's happening in your country. Be happy about that. It's low. That's great. But you watching me as well in an African country, GRC, so Cameroon, Nigeria, whatever, see what is about to happen in your country and make sure that's what you take the right measure for that. Because for that responsible manner, to happen, the guy who come and ask for the raw material, so ask responsibly, but he's also the guy who actually own those raw material to make sure that that responsibility happen, right? It goes two ways. That's what I'm saying. And this is what I'm saying by being aware of information that we share right now, allowing you to be better prepared. Is that okay? Excellent. So I think this time we should be done. Brian, thanks very much for that. You've been very active for that. I absolutely appreciate that, and I love it. Yeah. So your contribution has been key. So as I say, so hopefully you like the video. Make sure that you share it. Make sure that you leave a comment, and make sure that you like our platform on all 5 channels: LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Telegram. Right, and sign as well, and click on the notification button so that whatever we're having a video, you're not missing it. Okay, excellent. So pleasure to be talking to you as usual, guys, and we love it. Yeah, we love it, and we want to thank you for the support. And I usually say I'm going to go back and enjoy myself, and until that time, make sure that you enjoy your day, and may the sun be with you guys. Okay, I'll see you next time. Take care, guys. Bye bye.